Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. I hope everybody out there is doing well, wherever you happen to be in the world at this moment, listening to this podcast. So today I wanted to talk about a movie that has been a classic in my household with my kids, but also was a classic when I was a kid. And we watch it almost every single year without fail during Christmas time. And it's simply called A Christmas Story. I know a lot of people have obviously seen this movie. It's quoted quite often. There's so many great moments, so many great scenes that have come out of this movie that have been, kind of referenced or parodied in one way or another. But it really is in itself kind of its own comedy. It's a holiday Christmas comedy. Because there are a lot of just absurd things that happen in this movie, even though it seems to be quite grounded in a reality that it once existed. So if you don't know, the film takes place in the 1940s, and it centers around this kid named Ralphie, who his one goal is to get this Red Ryder BB gun that we don't exactly know why he wants it. We just know that he wants it. And the entire movie, he's trying to scheme to, trick his parents into buying it for him for Christmas. He tries to gain favor with his teacher that maybe she can, build the case by, he has to write a paper about what he wants for Christmas. And maybe through getting an A on that paper, he thinks that he could show it to his parents, and the parents will say, oh, well, the teacher thinks this is a good idea. Maybe we should get you this BB gun. And when that whole thing falls apart, then he finally realizes, oh, why don't I just try asking Santa? He's the guy who can make this happen for me. So I'm going to just go and ask Santa for it. But even that falls apart because, he's asking a mall Santa who's already stressed out with all the kids that he has to see, and he wants to go home, for this, this thing. And even Ralphie kind of forgets what he's asking for because, it's just such an overwhelming experience in the mall, and there's so many people there. So that's kind of the gist of it is him just kind of trying to find, he really wants this BB gun. He's trying everything possible to gain favor with, his parents or his teachers or with Santa in order to get it. And I don't want to give away the ending, but it's that's pretty much what it's all about. But we're also seeing it from his perspective. It's through the eyes of Ralphie, and they go as far as kind of using the trope or they use the Charlie Brown kind of way of seeing the parents. I mean, you as an audience member, they're not, when they're speaking, they're not, trumpets or horns, going wah, 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 wah. But the way in which the dad will get very frustrated and he'll start cursing, and his cursing is absolute nonsense. It's gibberish. And you can kind of see that the movie is from his perspective of Ralphie's perspective of not understanding exactly what his dad's saying, but knowing that it's bad and knowing that his dad's angry, but he's not actually processing what the words are that he's saying. But also, the apart from that, there's the character of Ralphie is very much a daydreamer, and as a kid watching this movie, I could totally relate to him because of the fact that I was a daydreamer. I would spend lots of time during the day just kind of staring off into space, and my mind was off someplace else, just kind of thinking of things or imagining scenarios, in my own life, a lot of wishful thinking, like, oh, what if this happened, or what if this girl really liked me, or like, how would I approach this situation, or, like all of that. And you get to see that in this movie. Like he constantly goes into this the daydream state where he's daydreaming that if only he had this BB gun, he could protect his family from from bandits who are trying to get into the house, or when he's like really sad and depressed, and he's gotten in trouble for saying a bad word, that like he's like, oh well, everybody will feel sorry for me because I'll be blind from like soap poisoning, because like the punishment back then was if you said a bad word, they stick a bar of soap in your mouth, which like I'm glad that missed my generation a bit. I mean, I did get a little of that, but yeah, not nearly to the extent that I'm sure past generations had with, if you said a bad word, it's like, okay, we're going to put the soap in your mouth. We're going to wash out your mouth because you're saying dirty words. But, stuff like that. So there's a lot of just seeing the world through his eyes. And I really appreciated that as a kid, because, I didn't know how to explain to anybody else that this is what was happening, and I didn't even know that I myself was doing that. I just knew that I would just kind of daydream and think about things, and that was kind of like what I did a lot of the time. I mean, granted, like I went out and I played, and I got dirty and got scrapes on my knees and did all kinds of like crazy things that I probably would never want my kids to do, but I still had that part of myself where I would just like zone out and daydream about stuff all the time. So this has been a classic movie in my life, and just being able to watch it year after year, I start seeing things that I hadn't seen before. I start instead of seeing the movie through the perspective of Ralphie, I start seeing it more through the perspective of the parents. And being a parent myself, being able to see their reactions to some of the game, not the games, but like the little ways in which Ralphie tries to talk about, oh, well, I really want this BB gun, but he's like not talking about it. You can see the parents kind of looking at each other like, we know what's going on here, or, just being able to see things, to see this movie as a parent, just it's actually a lot more hilarious than when I was a kid and I took it way seriously, where I was just like, oh man, if only, I really want this thing for Christmas, and, oh man, I look at this kid, he's like trying to like do all these things to try to convince people that, he should get this present, and, just like really having this wishful thinking or wanting him to succeed, because I'm like, yeah, like I want that to be like my life a little bit. I want to be able to just ask for something for Christmas and then just have it like actually happen, like that would be so cool. And not to say like it, most of the time Christmas never really happened the way I thought it was. I mean, not to say that there weren't some years when I did get what I asked for, and that was amazing. But most of the time, you got what you got, and that was it. And it's like you were happy for it, or it's like hey, the worst that could have happened is that you got nothing. So it's like I think I was more grateful more years that I got something that, like, even if I wasn't excited about when I first saw it, I kind of warmed up to it when I was like, oh yeah, well, I actually do like this. I didn't realize that I wanted this, but yeah, this is like actually pretty cool. I kind of like this more than the thing that I asked for. But I'm kind of getting a bit off topic there. So, I wanted to just like talk about how this movie really holds up, at least for me, and I think it holds up in general, just because of the fact that it does rely on this linear story of a kid who just really wants something for Christmas, but he's also coming up against all these obstacles. He comes up against like the school bully, who, like, you know, if you were ever bullied as a kid, like, you can relate to the onslaught of a bully just kind of like not leaving you alone. And that's what happens in this movie to Ralphie, that like him and his friends, you know, have to deal with this bully. And there comes a point where Ralphie kind of like, it's a really low point in the movie for him. He's feeling like really down, and the bully picks on him, and Ralphie like fights back. And it's like, it's one of those moments where you can just like see that, you know, he's just not going to take it anymore. He's like had so many setbacks, and you know, granted, it's because of like he thinks he's not going to get this present, which is really kind of shallow, but it kind of pays off because of the fact that like this bully has been picking on them for a while, and he finally stands up for himself. And we don't actually get to see like if the bully like leaves him alone in the end. We kind of get a sense that like since like Ralphie like stuck up for himself, since like he fought the bully, that the bully would back off and say, okay, well, I'm not going to I'm not going to pick on this kid anymore because he fought back. I'm only interested in the kids that I can still bully. And that seems to be the character that they set up with the bully, is that he kind of goes with whoever the weakest person is and goes after them, and anybody who shows any bit of strength, like he would most likely like leave alone. So there's kind of like an arc there where it's like, you know, like Ralphie kind of goes from being this kid who's, you know, not necessarily that he's scared of the bully, but he's just like, I just don't want to, like, this is just the schoolyard life. This is just kind of what I have to deal with, but I don't like it. And he keeps picking on my friends, and he keeps picking on me, and I guess, but you know, I guess it's just the way it's gonna have to be, because that's just schoolyard life. So there's that part of it, and so there's a lot of you know, classic scenes that have come out of this movie. You know, I mentioned how the father, like, you know, he cusses a lot, but in the movie he's basically saying actual gibberish. Like, there's no actual like curse words that come out of his mouth. But there is a moment when Ralphie feels like he's screwed up, and through his perspective, he says the word fudge, but then in the movie he says, well, I didn't say fudge. And you know, you get it's a very like tense moment where you're like, oh my gosh, he just said the F word in front of his parents. He's so like he's gonna get whooped. He's like, oh my goodness, like it's not gonna go over well. And so there's that classic moment. There's a classic moment where he gets this this gift from his aunt. And if you see some of the like the cover art for the movie, you see him in like this bunny suit, and that pink bunny suit is the gift that he gets from his aunt. That he opens up Christmas morning, and his mom is like, "Oh, it's so cute. You should put it on." And he's just like, "No, please don't. I can't stand the embarrassment. Don't make me do this." And she's like, "No, put it on." Just like, and he finally does. And you know, his younger brother laughs at him. His dad kind of rolls his eyes and says, "Oh my gosh, like this, are you kidding me? Like this is just like, what, why are you torturing this kid? Just like, just take this thing off. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me. It's embarrassing for everybody in the room. Just take it off." So that's like one of the like classic moments in the film. There's a moment when one of the kids, it's like on the schoolyard, and like it's Ralphie and his friends, and one of the friends is like, "Hey, I dare you to stick your tongue to this cold pole, and because it's gonna stick, and the friend's like, no, it's not gonna stick, and he's like, oh yeah, I dare you, and then pretty soon it goes to like, I double dog dare you, and he kind of has to, because of like his pride, obviously, like the pride of the schoolyard. It's like, all right, well, he double dog dared me. That's kind of like the highest rung of like dares. I have to do it, or else it's going to be bad in terms of like my social status around the school. So he ends up doing it, and he sticks his tongue to the pole, and everybody just runs away because they're like, well, the bell rang, we got to get back to class. And so they leave him out in the cold, and it's such a cruel moment, but it's also really funny because it's just like everybody's just like scatters and just like, well, we're not going to get caught for doing this because we're kids and we don't like getting in trouble. So yeah, there's like moments like that. So if you haven't seen the movie, for me it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a classic. It's a movie that I'm gonna come back to like over and over and over again, especially around Christmas. I hope it's a movie that my kids like will want to watch over and over again, and kind of show their kids if they ever have kids, because it really is a classic. It came out in like 1983, which blows my mind, because like when I saw it for the first time, I had no idea when it came out, and then when I found out it came out in the 80s, I was like, wait, but this movie like takes place in like doesn't it take place in like the 70s or something? Or it's like, no, this is a newer film. It came out, within my lifetime. It's like, oh wow, that's crazy, but yeah, it's really good. So, all right, guys, that's all I got. I just came in to the studio. I just watched it myself. I sat down and we watched it as a family, and I was just as I was sitting there, I was like, man, I got to talk about this movie. I gotta I just gotta if you haven't seen it, I just gotta put it out there into the world. Check out this movie, because it's a very wholesome Christmas movie, and granted, it's from the perspective of like middle class white family in like Ohio, I think it is, but it's like the Midwest or whatever, and so it's just like it's from their perspective, and it's very like from that time period, but it also feels like a slice of life too. So it's kind of like a time capsule in itself as well. It's also based on a book by Gene Shepard. So if you like the movie, or if you've read the book and want to see the movie's out there. And I really have wanted to check out the book myself, because I love being able to see a movie, and then if I like it enough, checking out how it was on the page, like if it came from a novel, to read the novel and being able to kind of compare what changes they decided to make when adapting it to the screen. So it's a nice kind of like study in like why choices are made from a creative standpoint. It's like when they had the book and they were like, well, we're gonna turn this into a movie. It's like, well, what was kind of like left on the chopping block, and what did they decide to take, or what did they combine, or what, like how did it change throughout the process to get it to the form that we see it as on screen. I find that fascinating, and I know a lot of people will kind of say, hey, it's not like the book, and it's like, well, yeah, it's the movie is never going to be like the book. I try to look at it from the standpoint of like the movie and the book or the TV show, like they're all separate, like they're all different interpretations of the same story, and so I try not to get too mad about like adaptations, but I do understand why people do, because like some choices are made that don't need to be made. Some things were changed that didn't need to be changed, and who knows what the reasons were for that. But I'm getting off on a tangent. Anyway, Thank you guys for listening. Please check out A Christmas Story. Let me know what you thought of it. Let's have a conversation about it. It's one of my favorite like Christmas movies. Like I said, I grew up with it, so let me know what you think, and we'll have that conversation. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you on the next one. If you'd like to connect with me, there is an email for the podcast. It's tentative.title.with.tim.podcast@gmail.com. There's also a Twitter account. The handle is @title_Tim. There's also a Facebook page where you can post questions, or you can connect with me there. Thank you guys for listening. I'll talk to you on the next one.